We were doing the biggest implementation of Ignition in the world at the time. It would
honestly brought Colby in, and within a week they built Factory SQL.
But one of the things that always stood out about me, about you, and welcome to the Industry 4 Community Podcast put on by 4.0 Solutions. 4.0 Solutions, not Salad. I'm your host with the most, Walker Reynolds. Our guest today needs no introduction. This is like having Arlen Nipper on the podcast. It's Travis Cox from Inductive Automation. Travis, welcome to the podcast. Obviously, we're here to promote ICC. Like, that's the overarching, but as the community knows, I don't want to talk about promotion. We'll talk about it a little bit, but we're going to talk Industry 4. But with that, dude, welcome to the podcast. And why don't you do me a favor real quick, because everyone knows you as the Ignition guy. What's your actual title at Inductive Automation?
Yeah, well, thanks, Walker, for having me. I'm super excited to be here. So my title is Chief Technology Evangelist. And what that really means is, over the years in my career at Inductive, I started at the very beginning. It's always been, we had such an amazing product. And it's always been, when we go and showcase it, I wanted to demo it. I wanted people to see it in action. I wanted to ask me questions and try to stump me. Like, here, I'll build it for you. I'll show you how this whole thing works. So it's always been about education. It's always been about generating excitement around what's possible, showing off what the product can do. And, I brought that to every aspect of IA. And today, I could be more proactive in doing that, right? I go out and I do LinkedIn's, video series on different features of Ignitions. I go to different conferences. I still work with customers and partners, and it's all about, how to leverage the best that's out there to put it together so that customers can win, right? That's my goal.
So you and Kevin were, Kevin McCluskey. So you and Kevin McCluskey were like co-directors of, were you guys, it was a solutions group, or what was you two had the same role, you were co-directors of something. What was that role before you moved into this role?
Yeah, so I'll give you the full history, because when I came on the very early days, I was with the integration company, right, with Calmetrics, and that's when Inductive was being formed. And so I would take the two products that we had, Factory SQL and Factory PMI, and go implement them for various customers within that integration company. Then when it came Inductive Automation solely, I was the main guy. I had to do support. I had to do all the right. The marketing and all of that at the beginning, right? But ultimately, we built up the support department, and then I went around the country doing training classes, right, to kind of show people how Ignition worked. And then of course, we realized that we needed to have architects, people that knew the product really, really well, to help customers understand what's possible, right, and help them feel comfortable about the product. So that's when we built sales engineering. So Kevin McCluskey actually, right. He was from the integration side as well. He actually ran the design services department. So a long time ago, we had some design services to kind of help augment. Like, we never compete against integrators, but we would help, do some of the implementation right. with the integrators, to help these things move forward. And that was great. But we realized, that is not a long-term thing for IA. And so Kevin and I said, well, let's get together. Let's form a new department, sales engineering, where we can be the technical experts and we can, be those consultants, kind of share best practices, architectures, everything that's possible. And we really built that up, and it's one of the core parts of Inductive today. One of the most important divisions that's there. And now there's so much that division does. So, Kent Melville took that on from Kevin and I, and we were able to move on. And now we, in our roles, we get to be more proactive and getting out there and kind of showing what's possible. So it's really cool.
It's funny. I met you and Kevin basically right at the same time. So it was 2012, 2013, whenever it was, we were doing the biggest implementation of Ignition in the world at the time. We ran into some roadblocks, maybe 8 months in. Everything was going great, but we ended up hitting like this critical mass. And the guy who was in charge I love him to death, and he's a go-getter, but he definitely was the guy who, if he was displeased, you would know about it. And I got on a call with, I think it was with you, and maybe Kevin was on there, but I said, hey, listen, we really need you guys to come out here, because there's some things we can't do. Like, right. Here, this is what I used to say about design services. they would go, oh, inductive automation is competing with the integrator. I'm like, well, that's not my experience at all. For example, my first experience with the design services with Travis and Kevin was we needed to build an alarm management front end. We needed to be able to configure alarms from inside of an Ignition Vision client. Well, that's not something an integrator is ever going to be able to do because the integrator doesn't know the underlying Java. The only way to do that is you have to import the Java libraries into the client so that you can make those connections between the Vision client and the gateway scope. That was something design services you guys worked with us on. You actually are the one who built the original front end, and then I think we handed it off to another engineer. That was something we absolutely in no world could have ever done because we don't have access to that underlying documentation. Like this is the Java API that Ignition runs on. This isn't the Python API. There's no way to do it through Python. At least back then it wasn't. That's what you guys came and helped us with, and it was incredibly invaluable. And I just think it's funny that it was like I met you and Kevin at the exact same time on the exact same project, and then to watch you guys do. But one of the things that always stood out about you, inductive automation is known for, basically hiring computer scientists from UC Davis. That's kind of like it's kind of the mantra, right?
Yeah.
You were the first software guy who I actually thought of as an engineer, not as a software guy. Right. And I think it's that application mindset about you. Where did that come from? So like when you went to UC Davis studying computer science, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I was a couple of years behind Colby and Carl. Okay. They were the kind of same year. And so when they were the first two that came in to, to work with Steve and helping to build the software, right? That was the early days, Factory SQL and Factory PMI. I came in to kind of help. And
how did you end up there? Like you're studying computer science at UC Davis. How do you end up at Calmetrics, which was a systems integrator, doing industry? Oh, actually, the very, very beginning of Industry 4.
For sure. I mean, honestly, it was so kind of, luck, I guess, a little bit of it. So Nathan Boger, he worked with Steve on the integration side. He'd do a lot of IT stuff. Steve knew his dad, and so he was working there. And when Steve had the idea of like, let's build some software, he reached out and said, "Hey, Nathan, do you have any friends at college, that would, computer science people that can program that we can bring in?" And so he just happened to know Colby really well, and honestly brought Colby in. And within a week, they built Factory SQL. I mean, it was crazy. We have a drawing. Steve has a drawing of the original product.
It's one of my favorite drawings, by the way. I think it's as close to being on a napkin as possible, except I think it was on graph paper. But it's as close to being on a napkin as you possibly get.
Yeah, I mean, it was a vision, a clear vision, and Colby came in and built it. And it was a bridge between OPC and SQL databases. Yeah. Right? It had no drivers built into it. It was purely based on OPC. And that time it was written in .NET because it was all OPC DA, right? In terms of based on COM. And it just took data, put in databases bidirectionally. And so that was the first product. After we had that product, realized, well, we need a front end for it. And actually Nathan originally built some web, HTML front ends to the data. Mm-hmm. But that was while, Colby brought in Carl because he knew he was a Java developer, especially around Java Swing. Yeah. And he built Factory PMI, the plan management interface.
Did that come from, so let me ask you this. Did cross-platform, the pillar of cross-platform, did that come first, then the selection of Java and Java Swing for Vision, did that come second? Or was it Java Swing because of Carl, and then we're like, hey, this is natively cross-platform, it's going to run in every operating system? What came first? The decision to be cross-platform, or did we get lucky with cross-platform?
No, so we had two products, right? One was .NET and one was Java. And Java's, that's Carl. Carl was the expert. He knew Swing, all of that. And so we had those products for a number of years. Well, in 2008, into 2008, 2009, that's when the OPC UA Foundation was looking at UA, right? Unified architecture, and getting away from COM. And when that happened, there was this, okay, well, we should kind of combine, these products. There were two different installers, right? Two different configuration environments, combine into one platform. And that's when they distinctly chose Java,
And that's
because of
when,
cross-platform.
and that's when Ignition, 08, 09 is when Ignition rebranding happened and all that.
Exactly. And those two products, Factory SQL became the SQL Bridge module, and then later spun to the Tag Historian module, those two modules. Yeah. And then Factory PMI is Vision. So what
is
you
there
see
still
in the
any
designer and all
is
that,
there still any Factory FPMI libraries inside of Ignition, or have those all been refactored with 8?
I think majority of that is gone now. Okay. I mean, that was when 8 came around, it was a lot of effort to get rid of the FPMI. You see that in a lot of places within there. And then as well as like the module IDs behind the scenes were like FPMI. So now it's all Vision, but it was there for quite a long time.
So for those of you who are relatively new to Ignition, like if you've been working with Ignition in say the last 5 years, I started working with Ignition in 2008, and I really started working with Ignition in 2012. From 2008 to 2012, I was fighting battles trying to get Ignition into the places where I worked. This is the whole reason I ended up going to Trimax Systems. Trimax Systems was an Ignition integrator. Chris McLaughlin, who's now at Inductive Automation, is the one who hired me at Trimax away from a world-famous integrator who would not use Ignition because of their partnerships with other vendors. They were like, we can't, they'll take our discounts from us. From those of you who haven't been working with Ignition for a very long time, it was kind of a running joke within the community. Phil Termel and I joke about this all the time. And Kyle Chase, the FPMI imports, you would be constantly importing from these FPMI, the factory PMI libraries inside of Ignition. So, and it was just like this running joke, like, hey, you can tell that Factory PMI is still very much like core to the platform. I mean, it's like it's inextricably linked, even though it was rebranded in 2008. Let me ask you this question. So I would argue that Colby, Carl, you, Kevin, is Kevin an engineer, or is he a computer science guy too?
He's a computer science guy as well. He actually did a web development for Sacramento government for a long time, and that was a lot of what he did. But he's kind of plays many different traits. He's a really talented guy, not just from a computer science standpoint, but as an engineer.
You guys are all engineers now. I mean, I'm a classically educated electrical engineer. Engineering life cycle and all that kind of stuff. And then you guys do software development life cycle. And it's so while they're similar, I often joke that in the Industry 4 world, we're on this plane. On one side, you've got pure engineer. On the other side, you got pure software developer. And the perfect Industry 4 developer is a person who's like right on the mean on that scale. Half engineer, half software developer. But one of the things that's always stood out to me is you have a much better rate of teaching an engineer software development than you do teaching a software developer engineering, right? Except for inductive automation. Like, how is it? Because I asked the question, like, how many people did you go through before Colby and Carl? And like Steve was like, nobody. It was Colby and Carl. Like, and then you and Kevin. How is it inductive automation? And by the way, you four aren't the only examples. There's a million other examples. Yeah. How is it that IA batted 1,000 with the computer science guys and gals?
I credit all that to Steve, because when I came in, like, honestly, I had no idea this industry existed. I had zero idea that there were all these opportunities. Like, when I talked to my counselor at UC Davis, they're talking about going into big tech, right? Become a database, relation, manager, go and work for like Google or any of these companies. And it's like, that's kind of the classic when you think of computer science. When I came here, I was like, wow, there's so much that's possible. And what Steve did is because he on the integration side, that's what they had, controls engineers. They had tons of controls engineers there. And he would make us sit with them and work tandem in every single project. We would understand how the control, the program, what that was doing, how it was working, what the process was, to really understand that world, because he knew it really, really well. And so we really learned it pretty quickly, because we were literally boots on the ground doing that. Right. We would go for like a winery. I remember, when Crush happens around August, when all the grapes are coming in, we would be there and literally the whole time. I mean, sometimes we slept in a trailer that was on the facility, right? And we were there on a bucket doing all of making sure everything worked, making sure everything was in lockstep between what we built in the application to what was in the PLC. I didn't do the PLC programs, but I was very intimately aware of how that worked. And so I think that's a lot of that is why we learned it so quickly, is because we were thrown in the trenches. And it was something to me that was really exciting. Like, this is a new world. And honestly, for your first time, for any engineer that's out there, for your first time, when you build a screen that has a button and you press the button
Yes.
and it actually turns on a piece of equipment, it's the most amazing feeling, right?
Yes.
Like, it's like you've done something incredible.
Yep.
And that feeling it's just that excitement is what keeps us going. And honestly, we carry that culture through to every new hire that comes into IA, especially on the sales engineering side, because we don't want them to lose to not get that experience. So I'll tell you something we're doing right now. We started this new program at IA called Industry Immersion Program. I'm leading the program because we have about 370 people now across US and in Australia, of which majority of them were like me. I didn't have any background whatsoever in industry. And so what we're doing is we're taking those people every quarter. We're doing field trips, but we're flying somewhere around the country, and we're working. We're going to go see what the integration life is. Go meet with the integrator, and we're going to meet with 3 different customers to different industries to understand and see the process, walk through it, and have them describe challenges and successes and what they've done. Because I want people to have that feeling. Right? And every part of our business, not just the people that are the technical folks. I want everybody to understand what is going on, because it's so cool and so exciting, and especially where we are today. I mean, gosh, the times have changed so much, right? It's fast moving, it's exciting. And I a lot of it, we tend to think we helped start a lot of this trend, right?
That's the understatement of the year. I mean, yeah, to your immersion thing, there is a German company, a really large German OEM that is coming to the United States. I'm taking them on a tour at the end of September, I think, or beginning of October. This never occurred to me, by the way. I was meeting with them in Europe a few months ago, and I was having a meeting with it was like the executive in charge of this entire division. They're an OEM that makes platforms and stuff. I was talking to the executive who oversees all of the entire division, and then the chairman of a subsidiary who works underneath that executive. And they were saying, we're really struggling to understand the US market. We don't understand why we're everywhere except for really in the US. And we basically have, 10% market share, whatever the number was, 8%, and it's just been flat. And I said, well, American manufacturing is different. Like, no matter where you go, the manufacturing is different. If I go to Mexico, it's still manufacturing. But if I go to China, or if I go to Australia, is a really good example. If I go to Australia for manufacturing, what you're going to see is different than you're going to see anywhere else in the world. And I said, so why don't you come here and I'll take you to, I'll do a tour. I'll take you to a small mom and pop that makes up basically 95% of all manufacturers, in North America. And then let's take you to a big multinational so that you can see the difference between going to market in Europe or EMEA and going to market in North America. Because here, inductive automation has proven, I say this all the time, why is it more people don't copy IA? Why is it? They've literally showed you how to do it. And think about it. It's got to blow your mind. You've been doing this forever, and no one has actually copied. They copy elements, but no one's actually just said, we're going to recreate inductive automation's model, and we're just going to follow what they've proven. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah. Inductive automation has fundamentally changed the North American market, totally changed what the expectations are, how solutions are built, who builds them, when they build them, how they build them. The mindset has been totally shifted. And you guys did that. I mean, and I shot a podcast. I got another question for you in a second, but I shot a podcast this morning, like a pre-recorded one. And I was talking about 2 types of companies. And I mentioned you guys. And I said, there's the company that starts with someone wants to get rich. And so they take an idea and try to find a market for their idea. Okay. That's the vast majority. That's the VC cycle, all that jazz. And then there's the Steve, I didn't say Steve's name, but the Steve Heckmans of the world, who's on the front lines. He has a specific problem he needs to solve. He looks all across the market to try and find the solution. He doesn't want to build his own thing. He can't find the solution. And he goes, well, I'm going to have to build it myself. And I'm going to hire a couple of guys out of UC Davis and we're going to build it. And then everybody else says, I want that too. And there's your market. And inductive automation did that. You guys did that.
Yeah.
And what's amazing to me is how you've stayed true to those principles, for decades. I mean, it's really crazy. Like the up and down the food chain, it's all these people I've been working with from the very beginning. And that just is so unbelievably rare. And which the question is, how did inductive automation do that?
Yeah.
Like, how have you not been corrupted? That's my question.
Well, they've tried over the years, right? But yes. I tell you, like, it comes that philosophy, that belief from the beginning. Like when we were going out, working with the end users from the integration side, right? Like, when you're doing a project, there's a brand new project, like you're putting in a new line or something like that. You have the scope, what you have to build initially. But then later the scope creep, there's always changes that are going to happen. There's always people wanting to do more with it. Yep. And honestly, the conversations of like, because of limitations of licensing or technology, like, well, we can't really do that, or it's going to be really expensive to do this. Like, it's not really fun. It's not a fun conversation, no. Right? Like, at the end of the day, our job is to deliver the best solution to the customer possible, right? As an integrator, our job is to do the best thing we can for them and to continue to provide delight as you go forward, right? I like to say that. It's like you want to continue solving more problems as you go forward. And what we've done with this, what we do with the software is we freed it up from a software perspective. We put a platform in place that didn't have limitations, that allowed somebody who had ideas to go and just build cool stuff. And I think you've mentioned in a lot of podcasts, it's all about iteration, right? Being able to, like, once you have in there, iterate, just do more.
Yep.
And when you experience that as an integrator, like, and you experience working with the customer and you see them fundamentally get it and the light bulb go off, and then they're thinking every day, what can we do better? And how can we transform all this? You're now a partner in strategy. You are then continuing to do services and implementation. You're continuing to, move them forward, right? In ways that would never have happened before if it was just so siloed or so kind of closed off, right? And so that mentality is what has really, given us all this momentum. And we continue to realize that's still the importance today, right? Like, the companies need to be able to solve challenges, and the challenges are changing over the course of the last 20 years. They've changed tremendously, right? At the very beginning, I say like a big project back in the day were like 10,000 tags.
Yeah.
That was a big project. And now we're talking about projects where we got millions and millions of tags in just one building, by the way, right? And so it's quite crazy how that's evolved, but it's our customer first kind of like solving those challenges, that mentality, and the true, like, we want to help integrators be better. Like, we want them to grow and be better and to be able to provide the right solutions. I think that's a large key to our success. Integrators, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our integrator program and integrators and all the amazing, folks that are out there every day on the boots on the ground, putting these things in place. Like, you don't really realize it. It's like with the field trips as an example, like the industry immersion, people in our company have been able to go out and see, like, you go to a big project, the integrator has a trailer and all their engineers are working in that trailer and they're providing that stuff, right? Every day. It's like, you see that, and what they're under every day. It's just exciting, right? And so it's really that mentality that has kept us going. And we don't want to change that because we have a responsibility to integrators and to the broader community. That's the most important part.
So two things. Number one, I go back to why is it people don't copy what you guys have done. I remember, and I know it was Steve who said this, and maybe Don said it at another point, but Steve said, we don't have a big sales department. We don't have a big business development group because our business development group are the integrators. That our approach has always been that if we solve the integrator's problem, the integrator is going to sell Ignition for us. And I've never understood, I'm a huge proponent of like the operator. I believe the smartest people in any manufacturing facility, smart isn't a subjective term, but when it comes to the intelligence of manufacturing, what it takes to get things out the door, the operator, the electrician, the mechanic, the engineer, the supervisor, they are by far the most valuable people in any organization and are the ones you can learn the most from, right?
Yeah.
In our industry, it's the integrator. It's the integrator is the operator. They're the ones who are turning the bolts. They're the ones who are taking just a big stack of raw materials and producing something with all the things that you guys provide and other vendors provide, right?
Yeah.
And I've never understood why more vendors, more OEMs don't ask this question. How easy would it be for an integrator to take this and solve a customer's problem? What we're selling and solve a customer's problem. And it was so obvious that ignition was built by people who asked that question. Like it was so obvious. But to that point, let me ask you this. What is and I know you have to give the diplomatic answer. I'm hoping that you don't. But what is the coolest thing? Like you look back over 20 something years in this industry and you go, what is the coolest thing you've ever seen someone build with ignition that you never considered for a moment someone would ever build with ignition?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and
I have an answer. I'm going to tell you mine after you give yours.
Okay. I've seen so many different types of projects. Obviously, different verticals out there, right? Ignitions in virtually everything that you can imagine. But honestly, some of the coolest applications are when there's there's new innovations, right? There's new ways of doing things that were never thought of before. Right. So, for example, one that has always stuck out with me was these unmanned vessels that would go out and do like surveying, and on the vessel, they would put ignition there to collect all the instruments and to be able to like remotely control that. And it's kind of one of the earlier uses of like MQTT. And it was like just a really cool, innovative use case, right, for that. Today we start seeing things like ignition used to help control neutrino experiments, in these labs. There's just so many different kinds of use cases now. But for me, the one that I think is just the geekiest, nerdiest one of all that I like is like I love Disneyland. I like going to Universal and theme parks. I love Jurassic Park, right, and Jurassic World, those movies a lot, right? So like I've always loved these. And there's a company in Australia who builds the actual dinosaurs that go in these movies that all have all the movements, and called Creature Technologies. And they use ignition to actually for the people to manage all the movements of the dinosaurs and have the person who's trying to film this figure out exactly fine tune those movements that would get in ignition, that would then in like a flow diagram way that would get sent down the controller and actually execute and run that. Now that is pretty freaking cool.
Yes, it is. Okay, here's mine. And it was 10 years ago. Actually, I'll tell two quick ones. So number one, the most blown away I've ever been in my whole career was at ICC. And we're going to get to ICC here in a second. But it was at ICC, and I think it was 2014. It could have been 2015. And it was when Arlen Nipper gave the presentation on the Cirrus Link module. He was using engine, and I think he wasn't using transmitter. I think it was just engine. He had 500 virtual devices, PLCs. I think they were based in Chicago, and we're in Northern California. And he presents on stage integrating 500 PLCs into an ignition gateway, populating all the tags and drive edge-driven visualization. So as the tags were populating, the PLCs showed up on the visualization on the screen, right? When I saw him do that in seconds, it took 10 seconds to populate all the tags, all the PLCs, and the visualization from when he pushed the button. That was the most blown away I've ever been in my entire career. Like right up to the point where I walked up to the stage and I turned to everybody and I'm like, everything just changed and no one here even knows it. Like our whole industry changed right now. We just saw it happen. This is the rising edge, and that was at ICC, right?
Yeah.
Here's the coolest project, though, for me. It was a kid in Utah. You're going to know who it was. I cannot remember his name. Brilliant engineer. He was based in Utah. It was a smaller integrator at the time, but they're much bigger now. But he's the one who built the ability to record ignition and then play back ignition. Do you remember the kid who did it?
Yeah, Cody from Tamaki.
From Tamaki. Tamaki Controls.
Yeah.
So I remember when he showed that. So it eventually became a Discovery Gallery project, but I saw it before the Discovery Gallery. He was just like showing it off. And I was like, so for those of you who had never seen it, they had a normal ISA 101 visualization, 3 levels, and they were recording the plant. And then using ignition, you could play back the visualization exactly as it happened. So you could go back in time. So if you had some failure, you could literally go back in time and watch the whole screen 20 minutes in the past. And now we can take that for granted now, but I can tell you at the time, I was like, whoa, it never occurred to me to do that. And I remember I said to Cody at the Fat Rabbit, dude, you're brilliant. You're my kind of engineer, dude. Like that, you came up with that kind of shit. It's those types of projects where I've always just been, only IA makes that possible, Yeah,
100%. And right, is because, if you have a cool idea and you want to see it through, there's nothing stopping you. There's no asking for permission. There's none of that.
Yeah.
And like our job has always been, at least how I feel like what I've done is just provide as much information as we possibly can to help the engineer do their job, right? Like that's why we have good documentation. That's why we have a forum. That's why I put a crazy amount of time, building Inductive University.
Yeah.
Steve and I, that was our baby. Like when that first came out, he's like, we got to do this right. I developed a curriculum. It was like 650 videos, right?
Yeah.
I showed it to Steve, and he's like, this is amazing. He's like, are you going to get this done on time? And I literally would sit, in a room closed, and we'd record videos all day just because we wanted people to be able to go to Google or go out there to search and find an answer, right? Because if you can get an answer, if you can think about how I can do that, more gets unlocked, more possibilities, more things that can happen.
The first time that the training in our industry was free.
That's right.
Literally the first time. It never happened. It's commonplace now. But you guys were the first ones to ever do it, where Inductive University was, you could get all your training on the platform for free.
We really pride ourselves in kind of being the first in different areas, right? Like when we first came out, we were just literally putting data into SQL databases. Mm-hmm. So he was like, well, I want to be able to put it there so that we could use it, but that it's accessible to other people, right? To other applications, put it in an open format. We don't want this stuff to be so closed, proprietary, kind of locked in. I want to be able to like leverage what's out there, and databases were on the rise,
Mm-hmm.
when we first started. So we were the first to kind of bring that, and we got a ton of people to begin like, oh, SQL databases, they can't perform, it's not real time, and all this in terms of comparing to process historians. And we're like, look, we're not trying to compare exactly to a process historian. We're trying to unlock potential. We're trying to, open up doors, right? With what we can do. And over the years, like we've just done so many things that pushes the envelope and continues to be the first because nobody did it, right? It was not the mentality that the industry has. And like MQTT, I love that you brought that story up because honestly, for me, I remember so vividly. I'll tell you this story. I know we got to talk about ICC, but this story is so cool to me, right?
Yes.
Arlen Nipper is, first of all, one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
He is the godfather of MQTT. He is brilliant. He knows, like he's humble. He won't say this, but I will. He's incredible. And when he came to our offices, like he went to other big automation companies to try to pitch MQTT, right?
Yep.
And because he built this for oil and gas, 25 years ago, right? And so he came to our offices. I remember very vividly. We were in the Palladios, the top level Palladios outdoor mall. We were at the very top business. We just moved into it. We had a nice conference room that had this beautiful window. And we were really excited to like bring people into this conference room. But Arlen came and I met with them, and he's like, I want to share more about MQTT, and he was there on a mission to convince me, right? Like that he was like a crazy man on whiteboard trying to like explain, convince that this should work. And I get through it, and I honestly, I had to stop him. I'm like, dude, you had me hello. Like this is incredible, right? Like, let's make this happen. Because look, I came from a world where I understood open standards. I understood like a message-oriented middleware, right? From a like enterprise service bus type standpoint. I understood these technologies. And when I came into this industry, I was like, what? These proprietary polling protocols? I've got to like literally ask it for data every second or even faster. This is absolutely insane. Like, okay, I guess we'll have to do it. You know what I mean? And I actually had to, honestly, at the very beginning it's crazy. I did a little bit of reverse engineering to help build those initial drivers that we had for Ignition. And I know like what is, I'm like, this is, can you imagine a day where I don't have to do that? Like it just gives the data to me. Well, we're here because MQTT can do that, right?
Yes.
We are there. And so like what has been the architectures that people have built, the solutions that you're seeing today are so incredibly different and bigger and more powerful because of a simple open technology.
Yeah, it's funny. I one of my last questions was going to be, how is it really, I know how it's changed for me, of course, in my industry. And I was going to ask you, or in my career, I was going to ask you the same thing. And I suspected it was going to be, hey, like you think about it, edge-driven technology, edge-driven, report by exception, lightweight, and open is the standard today. It is the expectation of the client. It is the expectation of the person who's building the solution that you're going to support those 4 minimum technical requirements, no matter what protocol. It just happens to be that MQTT works out to be the best in that case. But one of the things that I want to get to I got to get to the ICC part. So let's pivot. But I was going to ask you how it had changed, how the industry had changed. But let me ask it this way. So ICC is obviously a lot bigger this year. Okay. It's, you guys have definitely, I remember when you guys said, I don't know, maybe it was in 2016 or something. You were like, hey, we're not going to do ICC every year. We're going to do it every other year. And everybody was like, what? No, we love ICC. And by the end of that day, Steve came back. He said, no, hey, we're going to do ICC every year. Because I think it was only like the 3rd year maybe that you guys had done it. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
You guys have obviously stepped up and made it 10 times as much work as what you guys were doing just last year. For those who are not familiar, how is ICC different this year? Like, what is the actual, the major difference? What should people expect? When is it? And how is it different?
Yeah. So first off, it's September 16th, 17th, 18th. So it's coming up here about 6 weeks away from the conference. So we're really excited about that. Of course, we're all in ICC mode right now.
Yes.
With that. But this year, it's the theme is level up, right? And we thought that was really fortuitous because of the time, where we are in time, and how everything's kind of converging in the right way. And honestly, what you're going to see is technologies and trends and industry momentum, all that, everything you're talking about Industry 4.0, we're going to see and experience it at the conference this year. So we're at a brand new venue. This is the Save Credit Union Convention Center in downtown Sacramento. We can accommodate many more people. We were always at the Harris Center, and it was in Folsom. This was a local community college that had these stages that were for performing arts, and we took over the entire facility and we did this the conference there, and it's been a great venue. The max was about 800 people total. Last couple of years we sold out really early, and we turned away a lot of ticket sales. Right, people that wanted to come. We said no, we don't have any more space. We try to be creative, create space, just wasn't possible. Right. So this year,
you did tents outside.
We did tent outside. We did a lot of things to try, but there's only so much from a fire code standpoint. There's only so much you can do, right? And that main stage, when we do our keynote, only holds 800 people.
Which,
right?
by the way, I would argue is you don't want to miss the keynote. Like if you're going, there are times I flew in, saw the keynote, and left. That's how important the keynote is.
Yeah, I agree. And this year, to me, the keynote this is one you don't want to miss this year because we're, like I said, technologies and everything's kind of converging, and what we're doing as a company to continue to provide the first and to ensure that the platform is really that cornerstone, for people's where they're trying to go. That foundation they need. Like from the very beginning, we've always wanted to unlock opportunity, right? Put data in databases, do this, do that, do this. And we realize that how important it is for integrations to happen, for the we're not the only solution. But if we can put it in, provide a great foundation, solve the challenge they need, at the plant floor level or the OT level, and then unlock potential higher, and you do it in the right way because we're leveraging standards and leveraging a lot of things that are out there, that is how the customer is going to win, because we can't build everything, right? That's the reality. So this conference this year, what I'm excited about is you're going to see that in action big time, right? Not only do we have our keynotes are amazing, but then we have a lot of sessions that we give, and there'll be sessions this year on AI, so people will see what we're doing.
Here's how I just want to tell everybody, here's how you know how amazing the keynotes are. Normally, a couple of months before, I have a general idea, just like through my friends, of kind of what's going to be said in the keynotes. There's always stuff that I don't find out, but Carl's keynote is so hush hush. It is like what Carl is doing in the technical keynote is so hush hush. I know that it's a big deal because nothing is being leaked out about it at all. Not even this little like that's how. So I know that I have to be there to see what Carl's technical keynote is, because clearly it is a keynote no one wants to miss, obviously.
100%, right? 100%. And I don't want to give any of that away, right? Carl's going to be able to showcase that stuff. So we have like community sessions. We've got great table talks, and we've got a collab. We've got huddles where people can kind of huddle on and share ideas. Of course, we've got the great, the ecosystem is all going to be represented here.
Yep.
And that part is really exciting to me because, if we can get 1 + 1 = 3, right, that's how the customer can go further and right. do more. And that this year it's kicked up, right? There's just so much more opportunity for networking, for learning, and for seeing these things, these Industry 4.0 solutions in action. Right?
Well, we did the webinar last. I don't know when this is being published. We're recording this. It's probably being published tomorrow. But we did the webinar last week, and I was stunned when we did the dry run. Talking to Paul and everybody. I'm stunned at just how much. This is like 5 years of conferences rolled into one show. And there's something for everyone. It stood out as you guys were serious about going big. When you say level up, you guys are known for your marketing. When you really are leveling up your own game when it comes to the show, including you guys invited Prove It, right? We're going to be in the exhibit hall. We have 15 to 17 vendors who are all building their solutions right now, and they're going to be presenting using the virtual factory. So just like our Prove It conference in February, the difference is the vendors are only given 6 weeks. Everybody's going to present on stage in the exhibit hall, and everyone must use Ignition as part of their solution, which is something unique about Prove It at ICC. Another thing that's unique, we'll have a booth, and you'll be able to interact with the virtual factory that the vendors are building their solutions with. But I wanted to ask you this. The reason you guys invited Prove It to come to ICC in the exhibit hall, was that because your focus has been on we want to demonstrate the art of the possible across this ecosystem, including this idea that Walker and the gang had about this virtual factory and this Prove It conference? Was that part of it, or was there another reason why you guys wanted Prove It there?
So that's definitely part of it. You look at it like we've always really believed in ecosystem, right? And that in the ecosystem, there are lots of incredibly talented people, from integration companies, right? From distributors, from other vendors, from third-party module authors. There's all sorts of different people, and we really want to represent that. And recently, we did a change to our partner programs, kind of rebranded to our technology ecosystem program, because we really wanted to be a very inclusive, kind of show that better together story and what's possible out there. And when I came to Prove It in February, right? When you first announced doing the show, when I first saw it, I'm like, well, we're there. We have to be there, right? Because we're doing exactly this. We're trying to push the industry forward. We believe in these technologies. We believe in open standards, and we believe in working with other companies, right? And so when you go there and you actually then see the live demo of how this stuff works. And it's not a PowerPoint presentation. It's
all the same plant. Everybody's working with the same data. So no matter who's booth you go to, which presentation you're seeing. It's the same plant. It's an apples to apples comparison. Yeah,
exactly. It's not fluff, right? And you cannot, if you don't have your stuff together, trust me, you'll get sussed out, right? It's pretty easy to see that. And so, and then the audience asks the hard questions, which is great. Ask the hard questions. I mean, we got questions about how does this compare to other technologies or other companies? And I love those questions because it's like, look, we're not trying to do comparisons here. We're trying to show how we work together so that you get the best, right? Here's the benefits we bring. Here's the benefits they bring. You get both, right? That's the cool part about all this. And so I felt like we've always had vendors at our exhibit at our conference. And usually it was like our strategic partner and some of our top level partners. And we of course would invite other members from the ecosystem, but we had very limited space at Harris Center, right? Now at Safe Credit Union Convention Center, we've got a lot more space.
Right.
Well, naturally we want to have the exhibit, have more exhibitors there. Well, okay, that's cool having booths, but we want to level up the customer or the experience you have in coming to ICC. Right. If you're a brand new person in the community, or if you are a veteran, you've been here for a long time, we want to have content and things for everybody. Well, guess what everybody does need? They need to come in there and see, if I have Ignition, what other technologies can I use right now today? Right. And there's no other way to do that but with Prove It. And we thought that we had to have this collaboration because I want people to, it's like if you're trying to curate your solution stack, come here. This is going to be a great place to see that. Because you get to not only understand how it works with digital infrastructure, right? These open standards, but we'll have the interaction with Ignition, so we can see how these things can fit together. And I can't wait for that. To me, that's the most exciting part.
So there's 2 dates real quick. I want to make sure, because Mariah gave me these dates, not for this podcast, but it was in the webinar. And I actually wrote them down in my notes because everyone who's asked me about ICC. So number 1, August 17th is the last date to get your tickets at a reduced price. So if you're going to go to ICC, buy your ICC ticket before August 17th, because you're going to pay a premium to get it after August 17th. You can still get it, but you're going to pay a premium. Also, August 25th, there's several hotels that they have discounts with. August 25th is the last date to get your discounted room. So book your room. Some of the hotels are already sold out. So some of the rooms, if you want to get a room at a discounted rate, you got to do that by August 25th. Okay. For those of you who are wondering, I've gotten a lot of DMs in this. Yes, I will be there for the entire show. I will be manning our booth, and I'll be emceeing the Prove It sessions in the exhibit hall. We just finalized the schedule. We'll be announcing the schedule publicly on all of our social media, like who's presenting and when and who the vendors are. I've had a chance to see all the functional specifications. There's a couple of them that I think are incredibly impressive. I think Kanoa is going to show some pretty cool stuff. So that's Jason Koop's company. Sepasoft is going to show some pretty cool stuff. And it's kind of tailor-made for Sepasoft because of the way the MES namespace is built, in-feed, out-feed, state and waste, or state and waste. And then the way that we have the state reasons set up, it kind of just couples into Sepasoft perfectly. All right, with that, we only have 5 minutes left, and there's a question I wanted to ask you that I think most people don't know that you're a big bowler. All right. So
that's right.
And Travis and I found out through later on that, we both have a bowling background. I bowled in YBT in upstate New York and in the Youth Bowlers Tour. And I was my best friend's dad was a bowling ball designer. And that's how I got introduced into the bowling world. How did you get into bowling? So 2 questions. How did you get into bowling? It's obviously a big part of your life. And how many 300 games do you have?
Right. So great question. I started bowling when I was 9. So my dad, he bowled in the league, and I didn't go all the time, but every now and then I go. And then I asked him, like, you know what, can I do this? Right? Can I try? He's like, yeah. And so he took me down. But we got a bowling ball, and I started and playing, and honestly, it came natural to me. Like, it just felt like awesome, right? And so he put me in leagues, and the rest is history, right? I've been bowling ever since, and I've been bowling semi-professional in that I do a lot of tournaments. I don't do as much these days as I was, but
right.
I've been bowling for a long time, and I actually have 87 300 games.
87 300 games. Seriously. All ABC sanctioned? 87
all
ABC?
Sanctioned. These are all sanctioned. Yeah.
Wow. How many 299s? More
Oh
than you
gosh,
care to admit?
many more of those, right? Those
Wow.
there's so many times where you got 11 in a row and you throw that and you get to leave a 10 pin, right? There's so many of those.
That's
That's there.
insanity, dude. So
Yeah.
do you got a ring for the first, you bought the ring for the first one and that was it? Or have you bought
So
more than one?
so I've got when I was youth, that was YABA, Young American Bowling Alliance, and there you can get a ring for you as a youth, one ring for the youth, right?
Yeah.
And I upgraded those to like gold rings, and so those are like my coveted. I never those are the awesome rings from when my first one was when I was 15. With USBC, United States Bowling Congress, you used to get one every year. So I have a number of rings, but then they stopped it and they said now it's one, for a lifetime, right? Because so many people are bowling 300s these days, right? And they're giving out rings right and left.
Yeah.
So I've got, I don't know, probably a couple dozen rings that I have, and but my first ones were the most important.
So my best friend growing up, his name is Brian Pinnell, and Brian's got 20 something 300s now. His father is a guy named Maurice Pinnell, Mo Pinnell, who he invented the offset core of a bit. So what we know of in bowling balls today is the offset core. He was an engineer from Cornell University. He invented the offset core. I can't remember what the first. It was one of the hammers was the original, and he also invented reactive resin. So what we know of now as reactive resin bowling balls and the offset core, Mo Pinnell was the inventor of both those technologies. And he until he passed away during COVID, he traveled the world and he would do bowling pattern. He'd do patterns at bowling centers. He'd do clinics. But the big thing was he was teaching bowling ball drillers how to drill offset with center of gravity to get maximum hook, obviously. And I'm assuming you're a grip it and rip it kind of guy. You look like a grip it and rip it.
I am a grip it and rip it. I'm still classic though, and I put all three fingers in the ball, right? Okay. I put a thumb in there. I'm not like, you look today, it's all two fingers and two handers, right? It's all the young bowlers now.
So I was a two finger with one hand, and I was the only person who was a two finger. I'm 51, and the only reason was my thumb wasn't strong enough. I couldn't even suitcase it, and so I just never bothered to try and get strong enough. But I want to give a shout out to Libby Pinnell, who was my godmother. She like played a huge role. Mo's wife played a huge role in steering me towards engineering and steering me towards my gifts. But when I found out you were a bowler, I'm like, hey, I've had a huge, he was, Mo did a hammer for several years, and then he went to AMF and he did the XS series balls. He'd come out with 3 balls a year, but some of the balls that you know of as the most reactive balls on the market, Mo Pinnell was the one who invented them. It's kind of, he designed those balls. So, all right, with that, I figured more people would want to hear more about like what Travis does in his free time, and I knew you were a bowler, so I just thought it was funny that we connected on that level. All right, with that, Travis, I know you got a hard stop. I really appreciate you joining us. So to put a bow on this, guys, we're in a wonderful period of time in the industry. When it comes to agentic AI, there will be, you definitely want to be at ICC and you want to hear Carl's presentation. I don't know what it is, but I know that it's so under wraps that it's something everyone's going to want to hear. Number 2, ICC is doing it bigger and better than they've ever done it before. Prove It is going to be there in the exhibit hall. We're going to have 15 to 17 vendors doing their presentations there with our virtual factory from February. And Travis, I'm sure, will have something very exciting for us. He'll have some funny costume when he's on stage or whatever for us. But with that, those of you who are interested in going to ICC, get your tickets by August 17th, book your room by August 25th. And with that, like, subscribe, comment down below, and we'll see you guys in the next one.